You're listening to Transformation at Work, your one-stop guide to Salesforce success. And this is Salesforce Tech Talks, comprehensive deep dives into the art of solutioning and implementation for Salesforce. Our expert squad of developers, solution architects, and industry veterans are breaking open the black box and digging into the possibilities of solution design and architecture. The show is brought to you by Jarrett, a summit-level Salesforce consulting and implementation partner and solutions provider, and I am Jeff Stormer, your host as always. Today we're talking about using technology to push the envelope on experiences in higher education. I really want to start by painting you the picture of an average student applying to college in 2023. Rakeem is 18 years old. He was born in 2005. Now, a few years before he was even born, Amazon has already switched from selling books to being, well, Amazon. By his first birthday, Twitter has launched and Facebook has opened up to the general public. It's not quite accurate to say he grew up alongside social media because by the time Twitter and Facebook took hold, the past generation of social media such as MySpace was already on its way out. He grew up enmeshed in social media. Netflix switched to streaming by the time Rakeem is 2, the same year the iPhone launched and the first mobile banking app debuted. By the time he was 3, Spotify music streaming has launched. By the time Rakeem is 13 and old enough to register for social media, Facebook has already become embroiled in massive scandals over user security. And by 16, he's publishing videos to TikTok, he's managing his bank account on his phone, and on top of all of that, he went through at least a full school year of remote classes with everything that entails. And all of those experiences are coloring his expectations for what college application should look like. Now, I say all of this not just to make us feel extremely old, but to provide some pretty crucial context into how current students expect to interact with their educational institution. And granted, you might hear a lot of this and think, well, I know all of this. I've watched my children interact with technology, but the challenge I present to you is this. How do you square that knowledge with the current, say, admissions process where online applications and digital resources are often unavailable or massively inaccessible? That kind of process, hard copies, printed transcripts, mailed cover letters, that's foreign and backwards to this incoming generation of students, and simply put, institutions need something new. And that brings us to Salesforce's newly enhanced core offering of Education Cloud. In this episode of Salesforce Tech Talks, we're taking a deep dive into the new Education Cloud. What it means that it's now a Salesforce core offering, new capabilities that it brings to educational institutions, and how teams and their technology partners can truly use those capabilities to transform the student experience. I'm joined in this episode by Julia Tailor, Jarrett's Senior Solution Architect for Education, and Matt Horton, Jarrett's Senior Solution Consultant for Education. Each brings years of Salesforce experience into their current role, as well as an astounding amount of technical expertise with over 15 certifications in Matt's case and 24 in Julia's, which gives them both deep insights into what a new offering such as Education Cloud can entail and how it can benefit education institutions. Let's throw it to Julia.
Like a really quick history lesson. I think Matt and I were at Salesforce.org together many, many years ago when Salesforce.org was its own freestanding 501c3. It was its own charitable entity that addressed higher education and nonprofit and actually had a form of licensing or resale agreement with Salesforce because they were such a quote unquote separate entity. And then somewhere down the road, and I'm not going to try to remember the year because I'll get it wrong, but
that year was 2019. Back to Julia.
A few years later, Salesforce purchased Salesforce.org. Again, how that paperwork works, I don't really know. But it was brought under the formal Salesforce umbrella. However, when we came in under that umbrella, nonprofit and higher education were still separate. We were, different organization. We had different structures and reporting lines and roles. And then slowly over time, different groups and departments were kind of aligned with their internal counterparts or within the core Salesforce.com side of things. And you may have seen recently where Salesforce formally retired the Salesforce.org brand. I think a lot of people still use that language, but it is no longer its own group. And that's what we talk about, where it's been centralized and brought into the fold, whether you're working with professional services, customer success, or product. And so it's just sort of been legitimized and recognized as being addressed the same way as financial services or health and life sciences, education and nonprofit are now sitting right there next to them.
Yeah, I'll second everything, Julia, that you just said there. I think this is, I'm going to use the word legitimizing kind of Salesforce and their investment in this vertical. Kind of a weird word to use there, but the Salesforce education products have kind of always been on the periphery of the platform, and are becoming more centralized to that, are actually centralized to that now. And I think that's a huge advantage, as Julia said, with the product team sitting as part of the core development team, all that fun stuff. It really sort of, when I look at it, I see, okay, now we're playing in the real ballpark here, right? We're not in the little leagues anymore.
Yeah, major league.
That, as Matt puts it, legitimizing transition, repositioning Education Cloud as a core Salesforce offering, represents a huge, fundamental change to the solution on the whole. Now, with the Salesforce and education teams truly unified, they have the ability to pull on everything Salesforce has to offer to truly supercharge innovation and deliver a whole new set of benefits to their customers. For more on that, here's Julia.
It's all about the database, is the shortest version of the story, right? But it's about encompassing the education solution on top of a standard database structure that's used across other industry verticals at Salesforce. And that is really acting as the core, as the nucleus of what they're building and the direction that they're going from a technology perspective. Previously, it was on the Salesforce database, the standard one, but it had the EDA, education data architecture package, laid over it, which essentially was a manipulation of that database. And then everything for education was then built on top of that. And we're now in the position to strip out that layer in the middle, and the feature sets are now built directly on the database. So we're now in that club, we're in the gang, and we can continue to leverage more and more of what's created from a Salesforce platform perspective. They have officially, formally, finally moved the education product teams in with their central product teams. So when they're collaborating with each other, when they're talking about roadmaps, they're part of those conversations. And moreover, that means that the education experts that are looking at product capabilities now have the expertise and the build capability behind them to move faster, quickly, and with more innovation. So it's a really exciting time. It's kind of we've turned the corner, and we're now going to be able to build better and build faster.
I talk to customers about this all the time, about that experience, that end user or consumer experience, which is really the students that are applying to their institutions, right? I know when I pick up my phone, my knee-jerk reaction is to look for the app associated with that organization, right? This is going to give institutions the ability to do those types of things, create those experiences, and start to leave some of the paper behind, hopefully.
And from an institutional perspective, that shift means exponentially more functionality, with the ability to pull in every tool in Salesforce's extensive toolbox with less administrative hassle. The end result of all of that is being able to meet a new generation of digital-first students exactly where they are.
Getting my soapbox out for a minute. One of the things that I get so excited about in this, and I feel like it's been a passion of mine in education for so long, is that, the newer generation of students that are applying to college now are true digital natives, right? They're almost the second generation of digital natives. And their expectation around a digital experience or, applying to university, I think, is on par with how they want to purchase something from Amazon, right? That commercial experience is exponentially growing. And if they can't do it from their phone, or they can't do it, in under 10 minutes, they sort of lose focus. And we want to smooth that experience. And I think it's something that education has been a little bit weary to think about it as a commercial experience and equate applying to college, as the same. You might buy a hammer from Amazon, but unfortunately, that's how the average consumer feels about it. And this will give them the tools to do that, right? Again, they have more flexibility, more reach, and they can easily achieve those commercial type experiences by leveraging the native core database and feature set. That alignment of the data allows us to leverage things like data cloud, in new and amazing ways in education that we haven't seen. And I think the relationship of a CRM, and I sometimes hesitate to put Salesforce in the quote unquote box of CRM because it has become so much more than that. But we all know that education at the heart of it is your SIS, your student information system, and in this case, your CRM or your student experience and how that wraps around all of it. And Salesforce playing in that space can now stretch further and deeper than ever before. Everything from marketing to an e-commerce play where you might register for an online class that's not admissions based, right? Something you want to do in your spare time, all the way down to advancement and alumni engagement. It's stretching across that, but it can work hand in hand as a data set with your SIS. And data cloud and integration features that are available in the new education cloud are going to make those data relationships stronger and more valuable.
Like being on core, right? Ran into a number of issues, as architects in the past dealing with managed packages, right? There's so many more complexities to it. You just start with thinking of like, okay, I need to handle the Salesforce releases, but then I need to figure out how these managed package releases are happening. And, to be able to simplify that and go, oh, I only need to worry about the Salesforce releases now. Those are the only things that need to be on my calendar that I need to figure out because it's all sort of bundled as one. I think that, in my mind, is probably one of the major benefits is simplicity. Not necessarily specifically a capability, but when I think about all of the teams and all the universities, colleges, and K-12 organizations that are using the platform, that's something that's going to resonate with those admins out there.
And beyond having access to core functionality, institutions now have the ability to really fully customize their Salesforce org to address their unique pain points and deliver specific value to their students with features such as OmniStudio. Here's Matt with a breakdown of what that means.
Honestly, the thing that I see that has the most value as kind of a core calming component, and there's a litany of these that they're providing to customers, but it's OmniStudio.
You want to talk a little bit about what OmniStudio is?
That would help, actually, wouldn't it, if I actually said what OmniStudio is? So OmniStudio is, I like to look at it as kind of it's like a form tool that has a ton of functionality behind it. There are multiple page applications, gather data from within the CRM, expose that on the page, do validations, do stored procedures, do lots of stuff that you wouldn't normally be able to do on a sort of generic form tool or through some of the other screen flows that are available. So it's kind of like screen flows supersized. I see tremendous value for organizations with OmniStudio. Yes, there is some developer mindset that you need in order to use that tool. But I think there's so much that organizations can do with this tool, from student facing applications to different types of forms that they can push out there that maybe some of the other tools are falling a little bit short on. And just having that as part of the Salesforce package, not having to pay extra for that functionality is something that I'm excited about.
Yeah, I think it brings more declarative capability to the surface. Like 15 years ago, when Salesforce was all about configuration, not code, and SASE and then the no software, and kind of saying like, yeah, you can do this with clicks without having a coder on your staff. And that was true, right to a point. But we all knew at some point in time in your Salesforce journey, you were writing Apex or you were doing something quote unquote custom as you really started to do more. And this actually, I think, OmniStudio pushes that transition point even further out, just because it brings in so many more features, and particularly things around data and data manipulation that typically you were doing with Apex classes. So I think that's super exciting.
And that's just one example of what the new Education Cloud gives institutions access to as a core Salesforce offering. Another game-changing shift is the ability to bring in features from other industry clouds previously walled off from education and use them to truly supercharge the experience that an institution can offer its student base. Here's Julia with a prime example of what that means.
There's a feature from Health Cloud that you can leverage now on top of the new Education Cloud, kind of talking about how you can plug and play feature sets from different places. That's essentially a timeline view. And it was designed so that, someone in a medical field could go in and see, okay, at what point in time did this person visit their doctor? When did they see a specialist? When did the test results come back? And lay it out on a visual timeline. And the translation of that is a student journey, everything from, when did they first sign up or come on a campus tour? When did they reach out? Maybe they applied and they weren't accepted, but when did they loop back? Or they did undergraduate, they're looking at 2 master's programs. How long did it take them to graduate? When did they live on campus and not live on campus? And lay that entire, what we used to call 360-degree view of a student on a timeline, kind of see that evolution. And I think that's really great because all the data was or is in Salesforce, but it's surfacing it in a meaningful way that you can react quickly. Whether they've called you up on the phone or they've walked into an office, or they're SMSing you from the campus app. You can see that information quickly and easily. So that's one of the great examples of kind of newer features that we can borrow from other industries for our education.
I think you're just going to see more and more and more of that, this cross-industry, cross-cloud collaboration. Financial services, health cloud, education cloud, nonprofit cloud, they're going to start building with sort of that common idea in mind so that they're not, all 4 of them, 5 of them creating a similar-ish product or tool set.
Yeah. And actually, one of the awesome things about working in education at Gerent is that we have partners in financial services, travel and tourism, health and life sciences that we can leverage in those conversations and using those tools. And that is what has been, really fun about Education Cloud coming out and being part of the Gerent team is we've had some fabulous conversations about leveraging a lot of those feature sets for our customers in education.
Which brings us to the big question. There's a great deal of potential offered up in the new Education Cloud, but if I'm a team leader considering all of this, how do I work with my team to make this a reality? How do you reap the benefits that come from Education Cloud now being a core Salesforce offering? The answer, of course, lies in a strong working relationship with a trusted, qualified technology partner. Let's throw it over to Julia for more.
I think the number one word that jumps into my mind is planning. If you're an existing Salesforce customer, either on native Salesforce or you're on EDA right now, it's about planning that migration, when and how. Those are the 2 things. And it's about looking at the feature set, right? If your Salesforce instance is primarily driven around recruiting and admissions, you're well positioned to start moving soon, because that feature set is already out, right? But if your Salesforce instance is revolving more around things in the advancement space where features are a little bit farther down the roadmap, then you want to plan accordingly, right? You want to plan for the timing within your organization. When does it make sense? Because we all know you have to dedicate a large number of resource time and funding to this. So organizing those things in advance are important. And also understanding what else you can get out of this migration, right? Because one of my biggest pet peeves, and I'm sure Matt's going to say he agrees with this, is we never want to go into a project and see it as a lift and shift, right? If you're going to move, if you're going to build something new, you want to create additional value. You want to make sure you don't lose any of the value of what you have now, but you want to make sure that you're taking a step forward or even planning to take bigger steps forward at that point in time. So that's super important to understand what your business processes are and what you want to change about those things.
I think something that I will tell every customer is if you have a question, don't hesitate, put your hand up, ask it. Yeah, just put your hand up, ask a question, get us involved, and let's get this thing going.
The education industry, as with just about every other industry under the sun, is changing rapidly, and changing out of necessity. Whether we're talking about K-12, higher education, or any other facet of the industry, the current generation of students is unlike any other that has come prior. And that includes, crucially, their relationship with technology and how they want to use it in conjunction with the organizations that they work with on a daily basis. Simply put, education institutions cannot rely on the manual processes that served them well in the past because the world is different. But overhauling those processes, truly meeting students where they are, that can be an overwhelming process. But with the right technology, the capabilities offered by the new education cloud, and a strong relationship with a trusted technology partner, institutions can truly reimagine what the student experience looks like and can create a student journey that feels truly modern, incredibly effective, and builds long-lasting relationships well after these students become alumni themselves. This has been Transformation at Work. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you again to Julie and Matt for an incredible conversation and some wonderful insights about the new education cloud. Transformation at Work is, as always, produced by Jarrett in collaboration with Salesforce. I am Jeff Stormer, your host and producer. If you enjoyed the show, consider leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify, or head to jarrett.com to sign up for email updates when we release new episodes. Until next time, thank you again for listening, and we hope to see you again soon.